Do you ever feel like manifestation is just another thing on your to-do list that you don't have time for? Like your spiritual practice is something that you have to do? Honestly, you're not alone because I felt that way too. Something that's really changed my relationship with manifestation is blending it into my lifestyle so that no matter what I'm doing, I'm also manifesting. I call this manifestation as a lifestyle, and it's single handedly made the entire manifestation journey more enjoyable for me. And I've seen my desires show up with a lot more ease. Manifesting as a lifestyle has made manifestation go from feeling like a task to something I just naturally do because it's who I am. If you'd like to learn more about this, I've created a step by step guide for you. I'll link it in my show notes so you can check it out. You're listening to the Affirmation Addict podcast with Pyle Corley. This podcast will teach you about the power of affirmations while making manifestation easy and accessible for you in order to enhance your spiritual consciousness. Thank you so much for being here, and now it's time to get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Affirmation Addict podcast. My name is Pyle, and today I have a story time for you. So, have you ever been in a situation where you feel like the universe honestly has something out for you and things are not going your way? Well, my story is all around that. I kind of hinted in it in the last episode. And before I dive into it, I am not shaming or angry. It's just a lot of emotions to navigate. And I'll be very honest. It is about people in my life, and I'm not sure if they listen to my podcast. I know they follow me on Instagram, but no idea if they're going to actually listen to this episode. So I say it with only love and as a personal lesson for me. And I'm getting so nervous. It probably is showing how much I still have to work through this, but I want you to know that the universe is always guiding you, even when you don't feel like it. Okay. So I think there is a very, very common thing I've talked about before where it's like sometimes it'll feel like things are falling apart before they get better. And just something that people don't talk a lot about on the manifestation journey is that as you are up leveling, you literally have to make space for new things to come in. And that sometimes means people getting out of your life. That sometimes means you having to move from a certain place that you actually really loved, but it means change, and change naturally makes us uncomfortable. But my story is a little bit about just the universe is always guiding you, even when it is a situation that doesn't feel so good. The universe really does always have your back. So for me, going to one of my really close friends' wedding in Costa Rica, and we had some arrangements. And I got a text from one of the friends that said, "Hey, this is 2 weeks before the wedding, and we were all going to stay together in a villa." And I got a message that said, "Hey, can you change your plans?" Or not, can you change your plans? Sorry. "Hey, realizing it might not be comfortable for all of us to stay together, can you see if there's other rooms available?" And the reason I got very just at first caught off guard is because one, I had been thinking about this situation. I had been thinking about all of us, including me and Tom, being together there during the wedding, all staying in one place. And it was just bringing up weird feelings for me, but I never really said anything. I didn't acknowledge it. And I was just like, okay, whatever. It feels weird. Maybe I'm just nervous. Maybe I'm excited. And I just don't know how it's going to go. And so I get this text, and immediately I was like, sure, let me check if there's more rooms. And after I sent that, I was kind of upset with myself because I was like, I could have really put my foot forward and said, hey, I literally talked about this with you. I asked you about this in May of last year. We talked about it. I wanted to double check if it was okay with you, et cetera, et cetera. I said we don't all have to stay together. Tom and I can get our own room. But at first, we all agreed upon it. We knew people would have to share a room, and we were totally fine with that. But I didn't say anything. I didn't really acknowledge that, hey, we talked about this before, and doing this 2 weeks before the wedding, what if there is no other room? Then what? Now knowing you don't want us to stay with you, it's kind of weird. But essentially, I realized that is all my ego talking. Like my ego is the one who wants to say, hey, you're kind of screwing me over, or hey, that hurt me because I feel like I wouldn't have handled it differently. But then the other flip side of it was like acknowledging that I was also feeling weird about all of us staying together and I didn't have the courage to say it. So maybe it is a blessing in disguise. We both were feeling it, and I have to be appreciative and acknowledge that, like, they actually said something to me, even though I was feeling it. Like, so it's so interesting because our egos can really get in the way of being divinely guided. And I'm not choosing to see this situation as something that I want to take personally. I'm choosing to see the situation as like, this is also what I wanted. Would I have handled it the same way? No. But that's been a pattern. Like they've handled situations like this a lot. So I don't think it means much about me. Regardless, I probably want to change the way I show up in that friendship and in these relationships. But I also acknowledge that it was something my intuition was saying. And I'm taking it as like a form of gratitude that the universe did support me and help me out, because I imagine we're going to have way more fun together in Costa Rica. And me and Tom are gonna have so much more fun being able to recharge in our own energy and then have fun with our friends when they're there. So there's so many times where like little things happen like this and we spend way too much time focusing on it. We spend too much time getting mad at people. We spend too much time filling everybody in and saying, oh my gosh, you have to hear this drama. And honestly, it could just be the universe's way of doing something that you were too scared to do. So honestly, for me, I was too scared to say, hey, need to change it up. Like I was feeling uncomfortable about it recently, but I was like, okay, we already committed. I'm not going to go back on my word. So sure, I was like slightly thrown off because it was so last minute, but I'm also so appreciative because they were honest with me and it was something that my intuition was telling me, and I was honestly just choosing not to listen. And my kind of perspective on this is, if you have friends or people who keep repeating patterns that you're choosing not to listen to, it's actually not their fault. Unwanted patterns in your life are lessons that you're not willing to learn. And that is my biggest takeaway. I can't get mad at someone for acting a certain way when I'm the one who's not willing to change the way I'm responding, when I'm the one who's not willing to change my approach to the relationship and the way I'm showing up. There's no room for me to get mad. Like, yeah, do I think that's not the best way to handle it? Of course. But like, I can't even be mad because I wasn't willing to say anything. And it's happened before. Like, this is not the first time it happened. The first time it did happen, I did talk about it. But this type of thing has happened in this friendship and in this friend group for me, like multiple times now. And if it's an unwanted pattern, maybe that's just the way they're showing up and I'm the one who's evolved. And that can be a really hard pill to swallow because we love blaming others. We want to tell other people how they're not treating us right. But when we realize that maybe we're the ones who've changed and they might have always been that way, or they might be acting that way as a result or a reaction to my shifts, that makes me realize that if I'm not willing to learn a certain lesson and act according to that lesson, then that's my fault. And I fully acknowledge that. I personally did not have to go to this wedding. I did not have to show up, but I was like, okay, I want to. It'll be really fun. And it will be. And I know it's going to be fun, but I can't be mad because I'm also the one choosing to make myself a part of this friend group continuously when there have been opportunities and reasons for me to kind of stop building that and maintaining that. Not because I don't love them, but just because I think we're on different pages and in different phases of life and we have different values. So, for me, my lesson is the universe is trying to teach me that I should let go of this friendship and this kind of group of people, not because they're not good people, but maybe it's just not as necessary to nurture it in this way. However, I also think I was the one who's not willing to let go. I've gone out of my way personally to try and maintain this. And I think it's also about acknowledging that, like, not everyone is here to stay for a lifetime. Some people are here for a season. And in that season, they were the biggest blessing. And not that there's no animosity. Like, I think losing friends or friendship breakups, right? Like, I don't think that it's you're better than me or I'm better than you or you hurt me, I hurt you. I think it's just we don't add the same amount of value as we used to. And it is, I think friendships can be a level of convenience. Like when people live far away, it's always harder to navigate. And I think it's just important to realize like you might be showing up in a different way. Maybe your values have changed and their values have changed and it's just not that much common ground anymore. And that's okay. Like when you see them, it'll be civil, but not everything has to be the way it used to be. And I think we spend a lot of time trying to recreate things that once were rather than allowing them to be what they were in that moment and allowing everyone to move forward in their own unique ways. I think there's very few relationships that are able to grow together for so long in the most genuine way. And maybe there's things that you were just actually never okay with, but you were never able to set that boundary. And I know that's something with me. There's like, I think when I reflect objectively, these patterns have always been there, but I was never able to acknowledge it and set a boundary. And now I'm realizing it's not something I want to carry forward in a friendship for myself. Maybe we talk about it, maybe we don't. I'm still kind of debating what to do. I'm not going to just be like, okay, we're out of each other's lives, but I'm not going to be putting the same amount of effort and I'm not going to have the same amount of expectations. And another huge thing is in friendships, like you're not meant to sit and expect. Like, I think a friendship is a very mutual thing. And when it's coming from expectation, I think that's very ego based. And that's kind of been a hard lesson for me to learn. So I keep reminding myself that, like, unwanted patterns, if I'm experiencing a pattern that I'm tired of experiencing, that's on me. And ultimately, that's how I'm navigating the situation. I always get a ton of questions in my DMs from people asking how I can manifest X. The truth is, you can really manifest anything as long as it's for the greatest good. And if you're having trouble manifesting something right now, or you feel stuck on your journey, I have a really beautiful resource I've made for you. It's a free quiz. It's called the Manifestation Archetype Quiz. And it's something that I've created so you can find out your manifestation style to give you more clarity on your spiritual journey. After taking the quiz, you're going to receive the best resources for your specific archetype to help you attract your desires based on where you're at and what you want to create. So you can find a link to the quiz in the show notes or just head to my website at www.affirmation-addict.com. There is an unwanted pattern that I keep feeling with this specific kind of friend group, and I'm allowing myself to slowly learn that lesson, whatever that looks like. Rather than blaming them or saying they're bad people or saying they've changed, I think I might be the one who's changed, or I might just be experiencing it in a different way, and that might not even be their intention, and that's okay. But you'll know when the universe is trying to teach you a lesson that you're just not willing to learn. And I think your biggest indicator is when unwanted patterns keep happening. I think these happen in friendships, whether it's the same friend group or multiple. I've experienced this in all of my friend groups, actually. And that's the thing. Like for me, I'm still trying to figure out, is this a me problem? Is this a specific group problem? Or is this just the way I approach and handle a friendship? And I don't have the answer yet, but I do know that there is a lesson I'm not willing to learn. And that's what I'm open to learning. And that's my intention, is I'm open to learn lessons, even if they're hard to learn. And even if I don't want to act on them, I'm open to actually learning and acting on them and doing that with love. Like, you're allowed to outgrow people with the best intentions. You're allowed to outgrow or kind of distance yourself from people, whether it's friendships, whether it's someone you're in a relationship with, whether it's family. You're allowed to navigate relationships and create distance through love. So that's one of the biggest things I want to share, is none of this is animosity. None of this is hatred. None of this is pettiness. It's a lot of like self-reflection and how am I showing up and how do I want to be treated? And if that's not matching then it's either on me to put in the effort to talk about it, or if I feel like it's not worth talking about, then I have to be okay to learn the lesson of distancing myself and knowing that distancing myself is going to have these results and effects and consequences. So I think why I wanted to share this story is because I'm trying to be more open about my personal life and different situations that we're all encountering, and how spiritual concepts and manifestation principles still apply to this. Like forgiveness, like when someone traditionally, right? Like if you're telling someone a story, the reason I also don't tell people this story, because I know my friends and I love my friends, but they're going to be like, yeah, they screwed you over. And that's not going to serve me. And that's not what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm not trying to navigate this with frustration. I want to navigate this with like, why does this keep happening? And how do I learn the lesson that I'm really trying to learn? And I know I'm being divinely guided and being open to learning what that guidance is. I don't care if people know my side of the story, although I am sharing it, but I don't care if like my personal people, like people in my personal life know that. And I also have like this very interesting thing as a side note where like my business and my podcast, I actually like forget that people in my personal life actually like connect to this and maybe listen and can listen if they want to. I share more on here than I do with people in my life, except Tom. Tom knows me inside and out, but I share more, like I articulate my thoughts so much more on Instagram and in my podcast and when I'm in my one-on-one courses with you guys than I do like in conversation with people, which is very interesting. Like I feel like I have a very different way of showing up in this space than I do in my real life and in my personal life, in the sense that like I don't talk about myself that much, but I also understand that in my business and in the nature of my business, it's important to share my story and be vulnerable. So all that to say, you might be going through something where you hate it and it's hard. Maybe it's a breakup. Maybe it is friends ghosting you or you're not invited to something. Maybe it's family talking bad about you, whatever it is. And maybe, just maybe, it could be the universe's way of guiding you and trying to help you get to the next level and help you learn a lesson that you just might be resisting learning because it's a scary lesson to learn. And this is the first time I've admitted, because this has been one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, and I don't know why. But this has been a really hard lesson for me to learn, that it's like not everyone has to be with you for a lifetime. Even if you want them to, even if you've had some of the best memories with them, whether this is once again applies to relationships, friendships, family, any type of human connection, not everyone has to be there for a lifetime. Some people are there for a season, some people are there for just one reason, and that's okay too. And I think it's one of the hardest lessons to learn as like human social creatures. It can be really hard. I think we get attached easily. I think we kind of put on different shows and we have all these different things where it's like, honestly, being open with yourself, with how do I want to carry this forward? And I think your biggest indicator is if it's a pattern that you don't like. If it's a pattern of you're constantly dating someone who never puts you first, then maybe that's a lesson that you need to learn, because you might be the one who's not willing to learn that lesson. And that pattern will keep coming up until you learn the lesson. And it's just going to get louder and louder and louder. And I'm saying that with experience, saying that with this situation that I'm talking about. This has been a recurring thing for the past few years that I have just not been willing to admit. And I think I'm finally at a point where I'm like, okay, it's okay. And it's not out of animosity. It's only out of, I think after kind of this season, they might not be as prevalent or prevalent at all in my next season. And I'm starting to be more comfortable with that. And it's hard. I think we start to judge ourselves. We start to wonder, did I waste so much time? And it's like, no, you didn't. You needed to be in this situation to learn this lesson, and allowing yourself to move forward without judging yourself or them. Then forgiveness plays such a big role. Forgiving genuinely forgiving yourself, forgiving them, forgiving everyone involved, I think is one of the most healing things you can do. That can be a whole nother episode on its own, but really learning that your relationships have so many little lessons, little reflections, little patterns, little limiting beliefs that are highlighted or shined on so that you can work through them. I love using my friendships, my family, my husband, my relationships as learning tools and information on where can I get better? What can I navigate better? Where can I learn this lesson? Because I really think our relationships are a pathway to learning better lessons. So thank you for listening. If you listen to this entire rant and story, kind of moral of the story. Essentially, it was all up in the air. I ended up getting my own room. Me and Tom got our own room, and we got a really cool room. So it worked out. Like, I'm so excited because I realized I don't shoot content when I'm in front of other people. So now having this privacy, I'll get to shoot some really fun Costa Rica content. And I'm going to be so excited to spend that one-on-one time with Tom while we're there too. So it's all such a blessing. And I think it's all happens the way it has to. It's just sometimes we don't want it to happen that way. And we spend so much time trying to resist it rather than just being willing to learn the lesson. So all that to say, the universe is always guiding you, even when it doesn't feel like it. And I hope this brought you a little bit of peace, a little bit of reassurance that we're always going to be learning. We're always going to be guiding and navigating different things. And you're not alone. You're not alone in anything. We are all on this journey together. So I hope this episode helped you, and I love you. And thank you for being here. Mwah. Bye. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If this episode resonated with you, it would mean the world to me if you could rate and review the podcast and share it on your social media so I know to keep creating episodes that are inspiring you to manifest. I'm so genuinely grateful for the time we shared today, and I'd love for you to join the community by following @AffirmationAddict on Instagram. To continue diving into spirituality and manifestation, head over to my website, affirmation-addict.com. Until next time, I'm sending you so much love and so much healing energy.